Hello, this is my very first YouTube video. I am doing it in response to BJD Addicts prompt number 8, Stigmas and Stereotypes. Now, before I get started, I just want to say that I don't mean to offend anyone. My views are a little bit different because I am an anthropologist. An anthropologist is someone that studies humans and primates. My specialty is human culture. So, just watching these videos, I noticed certain, cultural traits within the ball-jointed doll community. And first of all, I want to talk about stereotypes in general. In one of my classes, my psychology class, we learned a little bit about the role stereotypes play in psychology, and it's something that everyone does. And the reason people do that is actually how the brain sorts and stores information. So, for example, if you were to say to someone, please go find me a pair of shoes, and the only shoes you happen to own are flip-flops, and that person has never seen flip-flops before. In all likelihood, they would still recognize flip-flops as shoes because they have a stereotype in their mind of what a shoe is. So this allows the human brain to operate on a level that's faster than computers, but there's also a large margin of error. As we all know, stereotypes aren't always right. Okay, the first types of stereotypes I want to talk about is ones that I have at some point believed. First is Vokes snobs / elitists. Now, I didn't believe that, all Vokes people were snobs. I actually once believed that Vokes was better than other companies. And the reason for that is that in a lot of industries, the cheaper the price, the cheaper the product. Like, especially for clothing and stuff. Like, a Walmart t-shirt lasts for about a year. Whereas something you have, like, tailor-made out of the best cloth you can find is gonna last a bit longer. And this used to be true about the Vokes company. Like way back in the misty dawn of time when resin ball-jointed dolls were first getting started. But as I did my research, I realized that now that isn't true anymore. And I think a lot of people still think that Vokes or Zoom, or Unoa is better than, like, say, Bobobi, because it does have to do with elitism. And that, again, it goes into psychology. Saving up for a better quality product makes you a more moral person. And that's true with a whole lot of elite cultural traits. Not just the ball-jointed doll community, but like eating gourmet food, buying the best brands of clothes, being more successful somehow makes you more moral, which, like I said, isn't necessarily true. Anyways, the second one I would like to talk about is the attitude that ball-jointed dolls are not like Barbies. This is one that I also used to believe. This also ties into elitist culture, I believe, because the arguments I've seen in favor of this one are often that, they're more sophisticated than Barbies, they're more expensive than Barbies, they're more artistic than Barbies, they're intended for a different function than Barbies. But that's not necessarily true. I mean, we dress them up in clothing, and we make up stories about them. That is very similar to what little girls do with Barbies. And I have seen artistic Barbie dolls that are over $100, like Elizabeth Taylor as Cleopatra, for example. That is one that I actually own. So that's when I came to actually stop believing in, when I actually thought about what I was saying. Right, the second type of stereotypes I would like to talk about is stereotypes that annoy me a little bit. The one that annoys me the most is the attitude that people who think dolls are creepy are superstitious or weird. Now, no one actually came out and said it quite like that, but I got the feeling that a lot of people in the community think that, just based on the videos that I watched. And I think it's a little bit rude, because there are a lot of religions in the world that have dolls as part of their religious ceremonies. So yes, there are a lot of people that genuinely believe that dolls can have supernatural powers. Like, one example is North American Indians. If anyone has ever seen those corn husk dolls that don't have faces, the reason they don't have faces is because that particular tribe believes that if it has a face, then a spirit will come to inhabit it, and then the spirit might be harmed if something happens to the doll, like say you drop it. Another example is voodooism. Voodooism is a mixture of traditional African culture and Christian culture. It developed among slaves as a way to feel like they were getting social justice in a situation where you don't really have any. So to them, the practice of voodoo and buying a voodoo doll from a priestess makes them feel like they have more control over their lives. And it's still really popular among the lower classes of Central and South America. And let's see, another example is Japanese spirit wives. This is a very little studied cultural trait of Japan that I actually read a paper about. But basically, it's when someone dies really young, like maybe in their late teens, before they have a chance to get married, the parents will sometimes ask a priest to make a little doll that they ritualistically put a spirit in, and they'll bury it with the person to be their spouse in the afterlife, so that they can, have a full life and experience the joys of marriage. And again, it's a supernatural doll that is possessed by a spirit that they actually believe in. And there's one more example, not quite as extreme as those two, but if anyone's ever, like especially among Catholics, praying in church. Like if you go up to, say, a statue of the Virgin Mary and pray to it. Well, I know that a lot of people pray without statues in front of them, but you are basically talking to a giant doll with the expectation that it can transmit your message to the real Virgin Mary, or whoever you're praying to. Okay, the second reason some people see dolls as creepy in particular is something called liminality. Now, liminality is the state of existing between two states. Like, the best example I can think of is an embryo or a zygote. That is something that exists between being not existing, not being alive, and being a human being, a person. You can take the scientific viewpoint that it has human DNA, and therefore it is human. Has DNA, it's human. So, or you can take the scientific viewpoint that it does not have a central nervous system, therefore it cannot think, has no consciousness, therefore it is not a person. So, that's an example of liminality. Dolls are also, to an extent, liminal, like that. Especially ball-jointed dolls, because they're so super realistic. You have something, or a picture of something, that literally looks like it could be alive. Like, you have a fantastic face-up for it, and it's wearing long sleeves, and so you can't really see the joints. And it looks like a miniature person. And yet, it was never alive to begin with. Some people do find that slightly creepy. And I'm just saying that they're wrong for their opinions, or that they're weird. It isn't really any better than them telling us that we're weird for liking dolls. Okay, the last one I have to talk about, actually, it doesn't annoy me. I find it kind of funny. It's the attitude that ball-jointed dolls are Asian! This one is really funny to me because I actually did a project in my Japanese class, a research paper on the history of ball-jointed dolls. Because it's a cultural trait we both share, and we're supposed to do something on Japanese culture. And on researching the history of them, I found that the first known ball-jointed doll was a German design. The first jointed doll, I think it had a hinge-style joint, was actually ancient Greek. The first known doll in the world was ancient Egyptian. So, ball-jointed dolls aren't necessarily Asian. In fact, the two native-born Japanese girls that were acting as the teaching assistants for that class had never even heard of ball-jointed dolls. So, it's not necessarily something that permeates Japanese culture. Well, that's all the stereotypes I have to talk about. Thank you for watching. Bye.